everybody, and welcome to the FuturePrint Virtual Summit for the Commercial Print Day. Now, I have the honor of introducing the one and only Pat McGrew, who helps companies perform better in the print hardware, software, and printing service industries. She promotes best practice for your business and leverages years of working as an executive, marketer, analyst, industry evangelist, and a consultant to enable business growth. She covers workflow and bizflow, effectiveness, management, and messaging for products, services, and businesses. Not only that, but she's an experienced professional speaker and co-author of no less than 8 industry books, editor of a guide to the electronic document body of knowledge, a regular writer in the industry trade press, a podcaster, host of Print Sample TV, and she won the 2014 hashtag Girls Who Print Girly Award for dedication to education and communication in the industry, and the prestigious 2016 Brian Platt Lifetime Achievement Award from Explore International. Now, this session, enigmatically entitled Nobody Died, but Transforming Your Way to More Profit, more on that later, is all about, from Pat, her message is doing the same thing over and over, but expecting a different result with each iteration is one definition of insanity. Yet, we all do it. We produce the same jobs for the same clients while reducing margins to keep the work. So without further ado, I'm now going to pass over to Pat, who's going to explain more. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you, Brendan. Wow, I sound like a really cool person. It's always funny when you hear yourself being described by people. What I'm hoping is that today, what people will be able to take away is that, one, I'm old. It means that I embody a lot of experience, so I've done a lot of different things. But the other thing is that based on all of my kind of strange jack-of-all-trades background, I've almost developed a formula to help organizations become better. Nobody died might seem like an awfully strange way to start a session, especially in these times. But it evolves out of a really interesting experience. And it's one that Brendan and I talked about because he's shared some of the same experience. I used to work for a gentleman called Jeff Hazlett, and some of you may know him. He's the former CMO of Kodak. And when those of us in marketing at Kodak were working for Jeff, he would very often start our marketing meetings. Nobody died, but we can do better. And it was his way of telling us that we had some work to do. We were not quite getting our message across. We had somehow taken all the instruction he'd given us, but not quite delivered on the promise that he had made upwards to his management and to the market in general on behalf of Kodak. And we took that very seriously because it was his way of coaching us to do better, to put our heads and our thoughts into the shoes of the people we were trying to sell our products to, but also the people they were trying to sell their products to. He was very keen on getting us to understand that there was a whole chain of operation. And out of that, we learned that we were the definition of insanity. We were doing the same thing over and over again, and we were expecting different results. And just a side note, I've heard that phrase so often in my business life, and I had to go track it down. And I found it attributed to Albert Einstein over and over and over again. Didn't sound quite right because that's not really the way he spoke. So I tracked it down, and it actually is attributed, it originated with a mystery crime writer called Rita Mae Brown. She actually uses it in one of her books to describe insanity. And just even that story tells us that we have to be smart. We have to really understand not only what we're doing and not do it over and over again to the point of insanity, but we also have to understand our sources, and we have to be just absolutely certain in our knowledge of the things that we're sharing. So what I can attest is that this presentation is extremely well researched, and while it has a sort of an unusual title attributable to my former boss, Mr. Hazlett, the goal here is to help you understand how to transform your business using the best possible practices. And to be honest, to think more deeply about the things that you do, and to think more deeply about the way that you are looking at the way that you operate your business. And, you know, the hardest thing is to take advice. So what we're going to do is try and offer it in bite-sized chunks so that it makes some sense. So the goal here is to help you understand how to transform your business so that it will it will survive to the other side of whatever we're doing right now, and how to embrace that change without fear. So how do you do that? How you do it is you take just dispassionate looks at the business that you are operating. And when you are doing that, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to go into the detail of your business. You're going to have to look at how your product mix is not only instantiated, but how you present it to the market. You're going to have to look at the equipment that you have. You may have older equipment, newer equipment, mid-range equipment. You may have high-speed digital equipment. You may have traditional litho equipment. You may be a full service provider. You may have a concentrated niche. But have you really taken a hard look at the equipment that you have? And the equipment you can partner to borrow? Because your product mix is probably dependent on equipment and solutions that you bought some time back. This is why we want to assess the product mix. Does it meet the equipment we have right now, but does it meet the opportunity that would be provided maybe by establishing a few partnerships? That's a lot to take in, and we're not done. We need to assess the sales process. And we've got to assess the sales process because your sales team might be the definition of insanity. They might be selling the same things they've been selling for years and years, and they may not have adjusted their talk track. They may not have adjusted their pitch. And in fact, they may not even know what your true capabilities are. And you may have tried to train them, but you know, it doesn't always take. You need to assess that business process. Are you bringing in jobs efficiently? Are you tracking them efficiently? Are you charging for the work that requires multiple changes? Are you managing the change process? Is your workflow being managed, or is it managing you? Is your staff being managed, or are they managing you? All of these things are the things that you have to do without fear. These are the things that you have to do in order to make sure that you can make your business the best it can be and transform for really whatever the next new normal is. So what does that look like? What does assessing really look like? How hard is it? How much time is it going to take? Do I really need to do this? The answer is yes, you really do need to do it. And you're going to want to break it down into pieces. You're going to want to look at people. You're going to want to look at products. You're going to want to look at your processes. And you're going to want to look at your production. And as we're doing this, I'm going to give you some tips on things to look for. And not only the things to look for, but the ways to understand if people are telling you a story that might not be accurate. So let's talk about the hardest thing first. Let's talk about those people. Your staff is one of your most expensive resources, right? When you add it up year in, year out, the burden cost of your team is pretty sizable. But very often teams have a way of starting to manage the business in a way that maybe the owners wouldn't, or the responsible people wouldn't. So the first thing you want to take a hard look at is the team that you have and the skills that they have, to understand, are they the people that you should have? And to be honest, you need to start looking at how these people interact with each other and how they interact with the business to understand, do they need some more training? Are they as well trained as they could be for the equipment that we have today, the software that we have today, the processes that we have today? Are there members of staff who resist every change and insist on doing things the way we've always done them? Do you have team members who are so enamored with technology, they're always bringing their own and adding widgets and freeware to a workflow that maybe you've lost control of? What happens when people start to retire? It's a lot of questions, but these are just the baseline of the questions that you need to be doing when you are assessing your current business environment. So let's look at who's on staff and ask all those questions. Let's think about the roles they're performing. Quick question, have you documented those job descriptions? Do you know who those people are? Are you sure you understand what they're all doing? And if one of those people disappeared tomorrow, would someone else be able to step into that job? Is it documented well? Do other people understand it well enough to do a knowledge transfer? Are you accounting for them? Are the performances reviewed and evaluated? And are performances communicated well? Because very often we get embarrassed to tell our staff that they're underperforming in an area, and we can't be, because we can't help them grow if we don't take an honest assessment. But now the hard one. Do you have people doing things that should be automated? Because this is 2020. We're living in an Industry 4.0 world. And we need to start thinking about automating as many of the things, as many of the tasks, as many of the steps as possible. So keep that in the back of your mind for a couple of minutes, because we're going to investigate that a little bit more. You know, when you look at the market today and you look at all the products in your product mix, they may not be in alignment with the industry that we're all serving any longer. You may have a niche that you serve, and that's great if you do. But even niches change. And if you look at where the opportunity is in the marketplace, you know, commercial print, nobody can agree on how big the commercial print industry is. It's pretty big. And while it's in a little bit of a stall, there's not an indication from any of the analysts that I talk to that that's going to be permanent. Commercial print still has a lot of legs on it. Packaging print has amazing legs on it. It's just going gangbusters, both traditional and digital. Digital label and packaging overall is considered right now about a $15 billion industry, but everybody indicates that this will continue to grow. And there's a lot of good reason for that from a product mix standpoint. Brands and others who create things that need to be packaged more and more, they want variation, they want color, they want to be able to personalize, but they don't want to pay for warehousing. So they want it on demand. They want it in short run, and that's where digital shines. Transaction print, we keep saying it's dead. It's not dead. It's still between a $10 and $12 billion industry. And to be honest, it roller coasters. Every time somebody announces a data breach, you know, people ask for paper again. So depending on where you are in the world, you may have really secure email delivery. And if you do, it's likely that transaction print is not huge in your space. But if you live in an area that does not have secure email delivery, you may still find that a lot of the information you get from your government, a lot of regulated communication comes on paper and through the post. Now, remember that definition of insanity? Well, if you keep on printing what you've always printed in the same way you've always printed it, your growth options are limited. Right? I want you to take that on board. It's important because you need to fix it. You need to start thinking about what you're going to do to grow your business. And it's important to understand that it's going to be different for every one of you. Your path to transformation has got to be based on your business, how your business operates, the markets that you serve today, the markets that you want to serve, maybe actually firing some of the markets that you're serving, considering, a quick shift, a quad left. So consider this. Every single segment has opportunities, and these are great opportunities. A lot of them are amazing. And if you haven't investigated outside of your core area of expertise, this is a great time to do it. If you've been doing direct mail marketing, if you've been doing circulars, flyers, if you've been doing hang tags, this is a great time to investigate all the other things you might be able to do, all the other types of products you might be able to create. If you've been doing regulated communication, you understand data. You understand how to create secure communication. If you're not also doing direct mail marketing, this would be a good time to investigate it. Do you do IFUs, instructions for use? It's kind of a niche-y thing, but it's a really important niche, and it goes hand in hand with the growth in packaging. Right? IFUs not only require really great printing and really tiny text, but really great fold and crease technology. And you may have that. All of the things that you see here are important for you to investigate, because there may be a light for you that allows you to expand your business and continue to grow as pieces of markets that you may be serving today wane a little bit. Where can you expand? It's an important question on your road to transformation. Now, I want you to think about this. Catalogs are considered by many in marketing to be comfort food. People love catalogs. We used to say that catalogs were mean and bad and terrible because, well, they printed on paper and they weren't green and, oh my gosh, and they were hard to print. More and more, even those who are e-commerce providers who don't have brick and mortar storefronts and never have are sending out catalogs. Even Amazon is sending out catalogs in certain markets for certain niches. Your customers may not have thought about catalogs, but they might be candidates for them. If you understand their product mix, you understand their customer set because you've been doing their work, this is a good time to have a chat with them about catalogs, because I'm betting that most of you can produce them. They're not hard. They don't have to be perfect bound. They don't have to be glue bound. Many of them can be staple bound, because the best catalogs today are the ones that are personalized or targeted. They're, 16 pages. They're easy to produce, and they can give you another leg in your arsenal, another arrow in your quiver. So what do you do next? Well, I like to think of everything in threes because I think it's accessible. I think it's something that everybody can bite on. So the first thing I want you to do is to review everything you have. I want you to review first your customers. Do you have customers who are underperforming? Do you have customers who you no longer really make a margin on? Do you have customers who are asking you to do print that is really not in your wheelhouse and maybe shouldn't be? You need to think about firing some of your customers. By the way, that's another Jeff Hazlett phrase, fire your customer. Would you be able to sell more products if you changed your customer mix? That's part of transformation. Calculating your true operational costs is also part of transformation. And so many places that I've done assessments don't really know how much it's costing them to print a given job for a given customer. Now, by contrast, I've walked into places where they knew absolutely every cost involved in every print job. They could actually quote to me the profit per square foot of the plant based on all of the data that they gathered. And if you're one of those, that's brilliant. But make sure everything is staying up to date. And if you can't identify every cost that goes into your print products, including all your overhead, your warehouse space, your cost of delivery, and the cost of managing change orders, you've got to get a handle on it, because that is where you leak money onto the production floor. And then, assess that market. What are the adjacent markets you might be able to jump into easily with the products that you have? Who else needs what you can do? It's a really important question. And while you're asking yourself these questions, build yourself a little chart. I like to use this one. I picked it up years ago and I've been using it ever since. Ask yourself some basic questions. So in this case, who do you work for? What's their problem? What can you do to solve that problem? What's your differentiation? What's your key value proposition for the solutions that you have to offer? And why would someone come to you? What is the thing that you do better than anyone else? See if you can articulate this, because if you can articulate this and you can get your sales teams to articulate this, you are on your path to transformation. And that's where you want to be. Another set of 3. You want to look at your processes, your people, your touch points, how you support them. How many people do you have touching any given job? Because if you don't know, you can't evaluate the true cost of doing the job. Is everyone in the shop cross-trained? Or do you have at least groups of people, bubbles of people who are cross-trained, who can pick up and run, who can ebb and flow as the work ebb and flows? You should. But remember, the more people touch, the more it costs. How many homegrown things do you have? How much of that freeware has been downloaded? How many processes does it take from the point where someone sells the job to the point where it's delivered? Do you know? Do you know every one of the touch points? And how much time is spent supporting those jobs? Following up on specs, chasing approvals, multiple approvals, color matches, dealing with customers who have unique needs. You need to understand that because, a funny thing happens in workflow. Touch points expand to fill the people and time available. So this chart is based on one developed when I was still at KeyPoint Intelligence with my colleague there, Ryan McAbee. And I love it and I modify it constantly. It doesn't look exactly like it used to anymore because I keep learning new things. I keep learning that there are more and more touch points, and a lot of these touch points loop. And when they loop, they become more and more expensive. So see this change management line, this bright pink or purple line, this is important because the more you loop in each of these touch points, the more money it's going to cost. And that's not even taking into account any creative development you and your team may be doing. Look, this is masterfully messy. And it's like most workflows, but the thing to remember is that every one of these touch points has a time component and a money component. And the more you loop them, the more expensive a touch point becomes and the less margin you earn on that job. Because very few of us are allowed to accumulate costs and then decide what to charge a customer. We usually have to bid it up front. So think about your touch points. And then think about your pain points, because you need to enable transformation that you can live with. It's not good enough to say, we're going to change this process here, we're going to automate this process here, and we're going to call it good. You're going to have to not only develop processes that you can live with, but that your team will live with and will abide by, and that you're going to hold them accountable for abiding by. You're going to need to look at every one of the touch points and figure out, you may already have software that automates it, and for reasons lost in history, it's not automated anymore. People decided they didn't like the automation. They thought the screens were too hard. They thought configuration was too hard to set up. You need to understand all these elements that you see on the screen in order to really understand what it's going to take for you to transform. Because at the end of the day, you want to be evaluating your estimates against the true cost of the job. And if they aren't really, really close, you know you have a problem. You could be way overcharging and missing opportunities, or you could be way undercharging and losing money on every job. And nobody wants to be there, and none of us can afford to be there. Take a look at your production. Look at your software, your hardware, and your accounting, and figure out the how manys of all of this. How many secret spreadsheets are there? And you might say, I don't have any. I have yet to walk into a shop where there is not a spreadsheet hidden somewhere in the mix, on somebody's desktop, under somebody's keyboard, where they're actually keeping track of stuff that should be in the system, should be available through a dashboard. But when I asked the question about why there's a spreadsheet, it said, well, because we wait till we're done and then we put stuff into the system. we don't really use the dashboard to tell us what's going on. It really tells us what happened already. That's not automation, and that's not the best use of anyone's time. The more spreadsheets you find, the more money you're losing. So let's think about that. Are you actually running to the capacity of your hardware? Because if you're not, maybe you got the wrong hardware. If you are, is it the right work? Hard questions. But it's all imperative to understand this, because the best practice is that you should be earning the margin you expect, and that takes doing the hard things, really making sure that what you can see in the hardware that you have on the floor is the right machines for the right kinds of products for the product mix that you're trying to sell. And if you find that you've got the wrong mix, this is not a bad time to be talking to your vendors about what to do about it. That last one, accounting, this is painful. Nobody likes to talk about accounting. But I have walked into too many shops in the last few years where they don't actually know how much money they've made for the year until 2 months after the fourth quarter closes. In fact, they very often discovered that there were jobs that were completed and delivered that they never invoiced. And they never invoiced for it because there were change orders that came in, and the change orders dropped through the cracks. And you might say, no, we're better than that. We got it all figured out. Go check. Do just a random sampling and make sure that every job that you do is being invoiced, and it's being invoiced for the right amount, and that change is being invoiced for. Make sure that's built into your contracts. Make sure that you have smooth interoperability between your production systems and your business systems. It's why I talk about BizFlow and production workflow. It's important that both do what they need to do. Because when it comes right down to it, you have to remember, fear kills. It kills off your ability to sell things, to try new things, to engage with new types of customers. Fear will it will convince you to avoid a change in process. Oh, you know, my production guys won't like it if I change this process, or if I automate that, or yeah, only Charlie knows, you know, our customers and their color needs, so we can't automate any of that. You know, our guys know our machines. We don't want to change the machines because they'd have to learn new machines. Yeah, they might have to learn some new skills. Printing is a manufacturing business, and the thing that we know about manufacturing businesses is that they have to change to stay competitive, or they become commoditized. And right now, if you're doing commoditized print, you're in trouble. You've got to find a path to doing value-added print. Now, you might keep some of that commodity print, but you've got to build a business, and you've got to build pieces of your product mix that will help you build your business, because things are changing, and they're changing just amazingly faster than we thought. Even just a few years ago, we weren't talking about, you know, digitally printed packaging on a mass customization basis the way we are today. There has been a lot of change. Remember that action changes things. Keep that in mind. Look, nobody dies because of a product mix problem. Nobody dies because of a marketing mistake, right? That was Mr. Hazlitt's key message to us. But your business can end up on life support if you keep making a lot of little mistakes. And that's what we don't want to do. We want to take this time to try and adjust things so that we can be going after the best work and helping educate our customers about what they can do. Remember that an awful lot of the people buying print from you don't know what's possible because nobody's told them. We find it all the time. Agencies don't understand the possibilities. They don't understand the new substrates available. They don't understand what digital can do for them. They don't understand what enhancement can do for them. They don't understand what's possible in doing different kinds of welcome kits. They understand the idea of unboxing experiences, but they don't know how to create them, and you can be their guide. Make sure your sales teams understand what you have to sell, not just what you have always sold, but what you have to sell. And if they're not comfortable, you need to get them retrained. And if you can't get them retrained to sell what you have on offer today, you need to rethink your sales team strategy. You may need to augment it to bring people on board who can tell the story that needs to be told, to help your customers understand everything you can do for them. And you might consider looking for some help to get your processes right-sized and automated, to identify where your loops are, to, untangle your bottlenecks. Because the more you can automate and the more you can streamline, even with manual processes, the more money stays in your pocket, and your vendors can help too. Don't hesitate to talk to your primary hardware and software vendors, because they all have programs and they can all help. And you want them to, because heck, they already know you. They've already sold you things. So went one too fast. So where does that leave us? It leaves us with happily ever after. What we want to do is transform the business and then keep our thumb on the pulse. We want to do a primary assessment of all of the touch points, all of the people, all the processes, all the technology, all the interfaces. But once we've done that assessment, it's not a one shot. We need to keep doing it. We need to keep doing it over and over again. We need to do quarterly self-assessments of our processes. Have we brought in a new piece of equipment? What's changed because of it? Have we upgraded software that has new features? Have we really accounted for that in how we look at things? Is our estimating and quoting program really up to date with the things that we're doing and our real costs? You've got to go through those processes, and you need to go through yearly hardware and software evaluations with the vendors who are providing them to you. And if they're not asking you, you should be asking them. Because these reviews are absolutely critical to you knowing not only where you are in terms of your technology, but what they might have coming and what's on offer. It's going to take ongoing education of your team members to keep them abreast of what's going on the production floor, what your capabilities are. And it never hurts to do some lunch and learns to help everybody understand what's going on in the market, especially in the markets you serve. And if you haven't done that lately, this is a good time to start reestablishing the 4 o'clock happy hour over beer and a presentation. It's always a great thing to do. And it helps people understand what's possible. And, a great print sample strategy is not a bad idea either. It helps everyone in the process. It helps your sales team members understand what you can sell, and it helps your customers know what you're capable of, and it keeps you on your toes. Because your print sample strategy should be in alignment with your product mix strategy, and it should be constantly refreshed. Print samples shouldn't be pulled out of the trunk of someone's car, the boot of someone's car, especially if they've been sitting there for 2 or 3 or 6 months or a year or longer, right? Your capabilities keep changing. The print samples you create to show off your best work to your customers, and work that kind of pushes them a little bit. It's all a great idea. It's going to help. It's going to help you grow your business. It's going to help you transform into the business that will sustain you for the next decade. And that's what we're really all here for. So again, I'm Pat McGrew. I believe in best practices, and I hope now that you do too. I hope that one of the things that you're going to see in the future is that your business is doing all the really great things that a business can do. And I hope that what you're going to find is that in the end, while nobody died, you might be on CPR. So let's get out there and let's get it fixed. So thank you, Brendan, for the opportunity to share ideas with the attendees at FuturePrint. And anybody has any questions, I'm always happy to answer them.
Pat, thank you so much for that really insightful and helpful session. There was plenty in there for everyone to get their teeth into. And really, I think what it comes down to, at least my takeaway, is that the most important decision that you can make in your business is the decision to make change. It is often the hardest one to make, but it is also one that will give a very fundamental and critical next stage, next chapter in your development. We're all good at hard work, especially in the commercial print industry. But what we're not so good at, and what we need to be good at, is learning the necessity for adaptive and flexible change. And I really think that this talk has been helpful in inspiring and giving some insight. I know certainly that us at the Independent Print Industries Association and the British Association for Print and Communication here in the UK will take a lot away from that. So otherwise, you can catch, if you didn't able to take notes, or you want to revisit any of the ideas or topics that were visited in this talk, you will be able to do so in the next couple of days on the replay function at the Future Print Virtual Summit site. If you want to connect with Pat via social media, just go to her speaker profile on the website and you'll be able to check her out on there. Please do follow up. And if you've got any questions, I'm sure she'd be more than happy to answer them. Otherwise, thank you, Pat, very much for your time again today. And I look forward to seeing many of you on the next Future Print Virtual Summit session.